Hey everybody, welcome to the Broward Exchange. I am your co-host Nick, and today we are reviewing, I don't know what album. Actually, wait, what album are we doing, Lewis?
No one taught me how to read, so I don't know. It's got
Oh,
something to do with this one, I think.
oh, I thought it was with this guy.
No, no, it's this guy. This guy.
Oh, him? The Mr. Clappy?
The he claps a ton. It's really all right.
Anyways,
Really.
so today we're doing another album roundabout, and today we have brought us two albums. Now, one of them is Blues Breakers with John Mayall and Eric Clapton. This is the beginning of a series, or I guess a sequence of reviews that Lewis wanted to do. How about you explain yourself, Lewis?
All right. So for me, I wanted to do a series on the work and life of Eric Clapton. Um, Mostly because, well, I'm challenging myself. It doesn't feel that much of a challenge anymore, but I was challenging myself to see what Hendrix saw in Clapton. You see, when I was learning how to play guitar, Hendrix was like my peak idol. There's some blues guys there next to him, and then like the players that come after Hendrix, guys like Jimmy Page, guys like David Gilmour, and Clapton is just he's like highly praised by all these guitarists, and I really didn't see the appeal outside of Disraeli Gears. Um, and but then I actually tried to go through Clapton's work in chronological order, keeping in mind how frequently he's changing styles, how frequently he's evolving to different sounds, and because and honestly, like the corpus of his work is stretches out like the golden age stretches out only from 66 to 71, just 5 years of the entire discography of Cream, Blind Faith, Derek and the Dominoes, and now the Blues Breakers. And there's significant like there's at, all of those works are 8 out of 10s in my mind. And also, he's like the very first real rock star. There's Elvis, but Elvis is more of a pop star. Same thing with the Beatles. This is the first guy who got famous because of the way he plays guitar, not because of his hits. So yeah, I wanted to make a series on him and all the styles he touches upon. Um, and see what it's about. So yeah.
Yeah. So that for this episode and the next two, Lewis will be bringing some Clapton episode, but you'll have to stay tuned to see. Also, stay tuned for the end of this episode. We got a little surprise, a little game we're gonna play. But for this episode, I brought "Loveless" by My Bloody Valentine, and we will be doing that one second. Now we don't have the vinyl of "Loveless," sadly, because I could never find
That would
one.
be fantastic.
I don't know. I've only ever seen one in real life. I will.
Legitimately.
I will I'd be explaining why, but for today, Lewis wanted to start first. So you wanna get it? You wanna go ahead?
For sure. Well, okay. You're a first time listener. What was your impression of it so far?
So you told me it's like it's 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 British people doing blues,
Yeah.
and I'm not really like super experienced in blues. I'm gonna be honest. I think most of the blues I've heard is British. It's Clapton and this, and you know who else? Who I kind of consider like they do British blues music would be Paul McCartney, low key,
Okay.
because he
Okay.
has like a lot of bluesy songs in the Beatles discography and post Beatles.
Yeah.
But this album, it hits. This album is like they're banging. They're wailing.
Yeah.
The guitar work is really good. Um, it kind of just blows my mind how Burton is able to pump out like super talented musicians, not just Eric Clapton and John Mayall, but the drummer is really great. The whole band is really great,
hmm the
and
sound of the actual album too, like the
yeah,
production
like
on
I
it.
would I would be so happy if I was just walking around, like going to shows, and then like this band popped up, like just playing the blues,
Yeah.
because they're just banging.
Yeah. And no, I picked it out. And when I picked it out, I thought to myself that this was the first British blues album. I've come to know from my research that is definitely not the case. But this kind of marks the beginning of there's like two distinct like eras in like blues in the UK. There's one where it's like kids that want to make like pop music. They want to make music like Elvis, they want to make music like the Beatles, just with like a bluesy sort of flavor. Guys like the Yardbirds, guys like the Rolling Stones, pre uh, Blues Breakers,
McCartney.
because they do McCartney
Yeah.
under the same thing. And yeah, and then this album came along and is like, no, we're taking out all the pop elements. We're legitimately trying to
Yeah.
make this sound as Chicago blues as possible.
That's what I was, because I was like, this is like a blues album. This is
Yeah,
like for McCartney. When I was thinking, he has like bluesy songs, or he has like he
right.
sings in a bluesy voice in this song. But this is a blues album. Like it's just straight A to B blues album.
Yeah, and I also now think that it really changed so much about rock music as well. Like I think
Why is that?
I think it introduced rock the star guitarist. Like there used to be
Yeah,
like the star singer. Like it was like Elvis or Dylan with his band or or like you would go to see
yeah,
them, not the band, even though most of the time they would have like a kick-ass lead guitarist next to them. There was
yeah,
still their it was all their music or maybe some covers, and yeah, you wouldn't really see them. Same thing with like blues players, right? Like a blues singer, even if you can play guitar and you can shred, he'll still get like a backing guitarist, but the
yeah,
spotlight is always on the singer. And then it changed a little bit with the Beatles. The Beatles now everyone is like, who's your favorite Beatle? Who's your favorite Rolling Stones? Who's your favorite Beach Boy? You know?
yeah,
And but you wouldn't like them because like you wouldn't prefer one or the other because they just so happen to play a certain instrument. You just enjoy their personality or what they bring to the songwriting. Now that changed with Clapton, specifically changed not so much in well much this album to the general public, but Clapton before was playing with the Yardbirds.
yeah.
Um, the Yardbirds were a pop group. You might have heard of the Yardbirds before because after Clapton, their guitarist was Jeff Beck, and after Jeff Beck, their guitarist was Jimmy Page, and Jimmy Page, pretty much mid tour, lost the last founding member of the Yardbirds, and went, oh well, I still I still got a tour. Let me get some musicians going. Like let me get some musicians together to go on this tour and formed Led Zeppelin.
Boom, like a DC ship.
Yeah, no, like legitimately, and so there's actually Yardbirds recordings with Led Zeppelin songs on them, featuring Jimmy Page.
Yeah, Yardbirds birthed a lot of bands right there.
Oh yeah, and but they got famous during their time with Clapton. And one thing that they noticed, all of the bandmates noticed, was that Clapton started getting his own following.
Hmm.
Like there would be people that, instead of, sitting in front, like where the main band was, or sitting right in front where the singer was, they would literally or stand right in front of where Clapton was, no matter where he was on stage. And there'd be nights where they don't play with Clapton and they would announce it and people would leave. People
Hmm.
would like, I came to see him. And
Damn.
keep in mind, this is pre Hendrix. So it's like unheard of. That's why it was so noticeable back then. Now when I say it, it's like, yeah, big whoop. Like people have their favorite like artists. But like
Yeah.
a traveling artist like that with fan base and in the UK, unheard of. And and then it became evident when Eric Clapton quit the Yardbirds. He felt that they were going too pop. He didn't want musical success to be his musical success to be that of a pop artist. So he dipped. He went like about a few months with no real work until John Mayall called him up. And John Mayall didn't call him up like as a like he was trying different guitars. He called him up being like, "I've tracked you down. I need you to play on my record." And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's how we got this record. And there's something about that that completely changed rock music, and that allowed for guys like Jimmy Page and David Gilmour to be rock legends in their own right, even though they're not singing. Well, David Gilmour's singing in some songs, but like he's not known for being a singer. He's known for being like a great guitar player.
Yeah.
And and yeah, I think that changed rock music and kind of separated rock music from being this like pop fad to being its own legitimate genre. Even though this is a blues record.
Yeah, well, I feel like the whole like focus on the singer is very much a record label invention that was from the 50s and 40s and even earlier from like jazz records and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I think rock is the genre where that disconnected and now you care because rock is a guitar based genre. Like that, I would say that is what makes rock rock.
I don't think people thought of it before Clapton like that.
Yeah. And I think that's where it segments into that. And then
Yeah.
you get Jimmy, and then you get Jimmy Page, and then all that.
Yeah. And and the whole thing of what'd you call it? The whole thing of like having a guitarist that also has improvised solos live, extended solos live,
Yeah.
um, playing with like these huge amplifiers. The only other band I can think of that was doing stuff like that at the time is the Who, but I don't really like the Who, so who cares? Uh, Sorry, like
I
there's gonna
do
be
as well.
someone, yeah, like leave your comments. I don't care, but like that, like they played with Marshall, but like it was Eric Clapton and made it sound like whoa, like have its own style. So
Yeah.
much so that Jimi Hendrix cited this album as the reason why he wanted to go to London and meet this guy.
Yeah.
And so yeah, no. And what else? Something to note here is also the fact that um all these songs are covers, but covers of blues guys that like most people at the time haven't heard, and it really propelled them to be known in the UK.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, no. I I just really like it. I just really like the playing on it.
So wait, okay. One of the things, blues is very much a Southern American genre, and I feel
Right.
like that's the culture that makes blues. And I was trying to think of this coming. This is a British album, and they're playing blues. Why did they fall in love with blues so much, and why do you think was there some kind of acclamation? Because I was trying to think like, what similarities do the British culture have with the Southern American culture? And I can't really think of any. There's an example of this for two different cultures coming up with the same vibe. And I wanted to bring up just to bring it up, the Fishmans, which is a Japanese like psychedelic dub band, and
Hmm.
they have like reggae-ish dub kind of sounds to them, but they're Japanese, they're not Jamaican. But I remember me and you talked about this, and we're like, you know what? But they're both islanders, and I think that's just the islander vibe, right? I was trying to
I
have that frame of thought with what do the British people have with the Southern American culture? Because blues is it's so Southern to me.
it's so southern, it's so country, and you know, to kind of a cop out, but during my research, even other guys that were in famous like British blues bands, they couldn't tell you. There's
Oh,
they legit but they have this belief that I think is more powerful, which is the belief that whatever energy is coming from the blues is universal, is
mm,
primordial. It exists like because like you know there's some that like had poor childhoods, right? But that's not the case with most. Like Eric Clapton came from a middle class childhood, went to a private school,
Yeah.
got his guitar gifted to him, legitimately good guitar.
Yeah.
And he went to art school at 15. Like
Yeah.
he's not a poor kid. He never worked anywhere with his hands.
Yeah. This is the equivalent of a private school kid doing hip hop.
Yeah, um, but like he and 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 a, and a lot of them feel that they can't really truly get as good as the masters because of that. It's like, oh well, I've never worked like a real job. I never had to like be homeless. Never had to be traveling out there, so I can't be a real bluesman. And you can see a lot of interviews of Eric stating this, of like
Mhm.
that he's like he's not as good as Howlin' Wolf or Muddy Water because he doesn't have that that pent up blues feeling in him, and that sort of
Yeah.
dissipates over time. Over time, as Eric Clapton's life becomes more complicated,
A
more
little bit of
more
a
more up and down.
there's a white
And
powdery substance that comes in.
no, more in the sense that like he goes through trials and tribulations that really lead to some serious, authentic blues.
Oh, okay. The blues came to him.
The blues came to him, like he
Yeah.
kind of like manifested that shit.
Oh, so you're saying British blues came to Britain more
Yeah.
out of just pure admiring of the guitarmanship, just the musicianship of it.
There is that there's an admiration of the soul of it, because it's not just records that featured electric guitars got big, or records that featured guitars were got big. I mean, one of the biggest inspirations for a lot of these early British blues bands was Little Walter, a harmonica player.
Mm,
And it really all came to UK around 1958. There was a tour put together featuring Muddy Waters, Little Walter, um, some other Big Mama Thornton, and some other blues artists. And when they came here, it was they played everything more modernized. You see, like these kids that are listening to records that were recorded early 50s, late 40s,
yeah.
because they're getting it from antique shops, from exports, from discount stores, and they're listening to mostly acoustic, country sort of blues, and a lot of them that went to these shows to see that kind of left disappointed. They're like, oh, they're playing like a sort of mixture of rock and blues, not understanding that blues evolved on its own uh,
Yeah.
over in the U.S. and it's not really record. It's with it's quite legit not recorded, so they didn't know about that evolution. Blues sort of faded off from the public view here in the U.S. because first and foremost, white people didn't like it, right? Uh,
Yeah.
for for racial reasons, for cultural reasons. They have their country, they have their folk, and then black folks didn't like it because they wanted something more sophisticated. This is when Motown was blowing up. This is when they would rather listen to Motown or jazz or soul or Aretha Franklin or something
Yeah.
like that. They don't. They like it's more like it was frowned upon to be in
It was the
blues.
past. It was old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so um these so you had also those two reasonings not existing in the British world.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, oh, this is really good music. Like no thinking of the social implications. And a lot of times they couldn't even think of it because this is a language completely alien to them. They've never been to Mississippi. They've never seen a, like a real like southern farm. They've never seen cotton grow. Like they've never seen like the poverty that existed in American South in the turn of the 20th century. So,
Yeah.
and not to mention like all the slang that's happening, all of the double entendres that's happening,
Yeah.
and they would come up with all types of theories, and it kind of led to its own vernacular at some point in the early British blues days.
Which
But
it
they
was
would use
their
British
interpretation of blues
slang, yeah,
slang.
and it was and it's sort of like it sounds like a combination of like blues slang with a little like hippiness to it,
Yeah.
and British slang all at once.
Hmm.
Um, that's why I think the interviews with Eric Clapton during the Cream days were really interesting to listen to.
Like
Um,
what? Can you do you know any of these slang words? You can give an example.
um, there. Hmm. Okay, there's the idea of the blues outside of the genre.
The blues itself.
The
Yeah.
blues itself as like this like not even like the they equivocated with experience. You get the blues
Yeah.
over time. They notice that these guys are not making records till they're 40, and
Mm.
is like you need to gain the blues
Yeah.
and or stuff like that, or they thought the delta meant the world as such. Uh,
Everyone doesn't know.
or
They mean the Louisiana Delta, right? In actual
yeah,
blues. Yeah.
yeah, um, uh, but then like other ones I think are like, were pretty obvious. It's just that they had funny concepts of it when they were kids and they didn't know about things like lemon juice. What's lemon juice? What's that about? What's this lemon juice rolling down your leg thing? Is that sweat? You know?
Well,
Uh,
come on.
uh,
Come on.
um, and so yeah, no, and uh, oh, and axe comes from there was apparently it comes from this era. They started guitar calling guitar axes. I got an axe to
Mhm.
grind. They thought I meant practicing guitar.
Well, it seems like because these are all like double entendres in the
Yeah,
Southern blues,
yeah,
but they're just taking one of the parts and they're going with it.
yeah. And yeah, no, and so the tour happened in '58 with all these like selection of blues artists, and that was like the first wave in which guys started being interested in this, buying records, just and looking out for guys who are picking this up. And it wasn't until the second tour that featured a bunch of blues artists that came to the UK in '62 that you start seeing like kids trying to emulate them through bands. Now,
Hmm.
the first band was put together by this dude, Alexis Corner. If I remember correctly, he's Canadian to move to the UK. He brought a shit ton of like blues records with him,
Yeah.
and he organized a at this at this place called the Club Marquee. He organized a blues night, and that was where all the British blues artists like met with each other. That's where guys from
Hmm.
Manfred and Mann and Rolling Stones and Blues Breakers would all chill, and this was like before they formed bands. And Alexis would just be like, "Hey, come on stage, just play a few songs," and that's how a lot of them started. They a lot of them even feared like starting blues bands because they're like, "Dude, who's gonna hire us? How are we even gonna market ourselves?"
Yeah.
There's a story of the lead singer of Manfred Mann. He was originally supposed to be the lead singer of the Rolling Stones, or at least Brian Jones wanted him. Like Brian Jones called him up. He's like, "Dude, I'm taking this seriously. I'm selling all my shit. I'm moving to London. I'm gonna start a band. We're gonna be rich and famous." And he's like, "Dude, we're playing blues. Get real." Like
You
rich
going
and famous.
before?
Anyway, a year after that, Little Red Rooster hit number one on the charts, the only blues song to ever do so.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and and yeah, and also like during this time, because these records are so rare, and because there's so few admirers, it like formed this underground connection of people who wanted to listen to blues records, and
Ah,
they would
because this
like,
was a thing back then.
yeah, because
Of like
you couldn't
record clubs,
you couldn't
essentially.
see it on TV, you couldn't listen to it in the radio, you just had to buy
No
the
phone,
record, no phone, no
no
phone,
phone.
and
You had to
and
know a guy who knew a guy who had this record, and then know another guy who had a player, and then form a meetup to where you
yeah,
sat down and you were like, "Let's listen."
no, straight up, like there's I think all of them, including the Beatles, have stories of like, I heard that maybe this guy in another town has a Muddy
Yeah,
Waters record, like a Muddy Waters single, like not even like a whole like album,
it's the four
and
minute song.
they would buy a train ticket to get there, and knock at this complete stranger's door, not say hi, and go, "I heard you have Muddy Waters," and then straight, and most of the time, other blues fanatics will be like, "Yeah, I understand completely. Come in. You gotta listen to this.
Yeah,
You gotta listen. You gotta listen to this shit."
that was the
um,
that's the good old. See, babe, I was thinking, is this why Britain pumps out so many phenomenal musicians? Is
that collaboration.
like a collaborative culture. Also, it's a
Yes.
small island with a lot of people, and you can take a train to just go to like all these different towns like Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool, everywhere, and London.
Oh
And
yeah.
like people do that. It's like very interconnected.
I also think the bar culture, like kids
Oh
go out
yeah.
to bars to
Yeah,
hang
the
out,
pub culture.
even if they're not gonna drink, they're just like, yo, let's just go see a band. Like that's what you do on a Saturday or Friday night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I went to London recently, and to be honest, I was in Camden, and
Camden.
that
Okay.
place you can fucking throw a rock any direction and hit a pub.
Yeah.
And like half of them have shows.
Yeah.
So it's just popping.
Yeah.
As opposed to the poor Broward,
Oh yeah, where you have to drive like half an hour to any other show.
and they're all the venues are dying, and
Oh, and you have
even
to pay
then,
cover. Most of them don't have bars, like an actual place you can buy drinks.
yeah,
Um, and
and most of them don't have stages.
well,
They have a corner.
it also helps that for music back in this day, no one was moshing or crowd killing, and no one was breaking
Yeah,
shit just to be an asshole.
that is true. That is true.
It would be so nice. Just please.
Yeah,
And yeah, no. So I think that all of this led to like, yeah, that's why we got so many great musicians, because they're all teaching each other too.
yeah,
Yeah, and there also isn't like an authority, like is like, or a hierarchy. Well, a hierarchy formed, but there isn't like, is like, if you don't play guitar like this dude, you suck. Like if you're not aiming for this, what are you even doing?
yeah.
That shit. It was a thing of like everyone's trying to develop their own special thing and
Yeah,
try
it was
to,
love. It
yeah, try
wasn't
to,
well, the competitive comes in when the money comes in.
no,
This
yes,
is before that.
and that does come in, and we will
It
get to
does.
that later in the Clapton saga.
Okay, okay.
Um,
But for now, it's very like it was just out of love of
like no one expected to get rich and famous off this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They're just playing blues because they like blues.
Yeah,
That's another thing I think that pumps out the British musician is an openness to other cultural sounds.
openness and accessibility,
Yeah,
because they literally sit at this epicenter of culture where you get records coming in from Europe, records coming in from the U.S.
yeah.
They're also getting records from India. They're also
South
getting,
America too, Brazil.
yeah, and and not to mention the islands music that later would give stuff
Yeah,
for
Jamaica.
ska. You
Yeah.
know exactly.
I mean, Scott was literally like a bunch of Jamaicans who went to the UK, found a bunch of punk artists. They kiss.
The Kiss.
Yeah.
Um and yeah. Oh, and also what I love about the blue story, the British blue story, is that a lot of them were listening to these records being like, wow, this I bet this guy knows so much about music that like I can't even begin to appreciate. And these
He's
guys
like a
don't even
he's like a grand wizard.
no like yeah like straight up. And these would be trained jazz musicians that would just really enjoy these records, and when it started popping up, and the blues guys wanted to come to the UK because there's kids that love it, you know, and there's a lot of money to be made. They would hire a British band, and these guys would be like, okay, what key are we in? How many times are we doing the bar? Like, when's the turnaround? Do we end on this chord or that chord? And pretty much all blues musicians are like,
Hold up, hold up.
you feel it.
I feel like because the Britain musicians are probably a lot of them are like classically trained
They're
to
all
an extent,
classically
like
trained.
through high school and like college, they learn like very traditional music theory and whatnot.
It's that, or they're learning from like really clean artists. Like if they're listening to stuff by ear, it's most likely like what we consider like the '50s rock stars, like
Yeah,
guys like Buddy Holliday and Chuck Berry, who while technically impressive, they're really clean. They're not doing like these like microtonal stuff that some guitarists do, some like playing like in very non-obvious spaces or with like a really heavy swing.
yeah.
Um so yeah, so to them like thinking like that is like, oh, I bet they like think of it like so much more than we can possibly understand. I was like, no, let's just feel it.
Ah, just
When
just
does the
raw dog it.
progression stop? Well, when I say it does. Like
You'll see.
just wait for my signal. Actually, there's a story of Howlin' Wolf when he came to the UK for the first time, and he got I I forgot what was man. I should have written it down, but he got a British blues band to back him up, and he gets to the practice studio on time, fitted up with his guitar. Is like, and he just picks up a guitar. He's like, all right, start playing something. Right? They play something. They play like a really typical like solo blues. He rips on it. They play like maybe like 10 minutes tops. He puts down his guitar. He looks at his manager. He's like, they're good. Hey, I'll see you guys Monday. that,
That's it.
yeah, and they would be blown away by this like not casualness, but this like freedom. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
can do whatever they want with their music, and and it shows in every single aspect.
yeah.
Uh, um, and I think that also like more than the blues feeling, more than the actual aesthetic, that idea of when it comes to music, if you got nothing to lose, you can just play whatever. You can truly express yourself. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of artists dug that.
I really feel like that is the soul of the '60s right there, right? The freedom of expression.
Yeah, and that's why so many from like so many subgenres and subcultures of the '60s gravitate to the blues because of that. Yeah, guys as sophisticated
You think
as
the blues
hmm?
like birthed this kind of train of thought to music and expression,
um
specifically in Britain?
in Britain I'd say so because their folk music has like this long tradition of stretching back to the Middle Ages. And
Yeah.
when you're trying, so, and there's like a proper way of singing ballads, there's a proper way of playing a lute or a classical guitar or violin, even if it's dance music.
Yeah.
There's just it's something that like you can't if you step out and try to express exactly what you're feeling at that time, it kind of breaks it. Like it's
Hmm.
like using it to channel an emotion is fine. Using it to completely like almost disrespectfully like switch it up, not fine. In
Hmm.
blues, you can just break this song down as as much as possible. And while Clapton didn't do it that much in this record, like it's still like a pretty clean record. You can see that way more in something like Led Zeppelin 1 or 2. There's little
Yeah.
like noise sections that I think achieve the spirit of the blues because it's like this is what's happening right now. We're jamming on this, you know?
Yeah. So speaking of that, you told me to also listen to Led Zeppelin 1 and Disraeli Gears. How does this album influence Clapton's play style into Disraeli Gears, and how does it influence Led Zeppelin 1?
So um so these two are examples of the second wave of British blues. Because the first wave is like stuff like the Beatles, Rolling Stones. I didn't really want to listen to a whole album of it. But once
Yeah.
again, it's pop
Well,
music,
it's this album is the first wave.
but then these two records are significant because they're trying to make music that would sound great at a live show, as opposed to music that would
Hmm.
sound great on a record.
Yeah,
And
I can see that.
and also like music that's once again more influenced uh, by what's going on in blues and even folk music than um, than pop music, and and so those two records, which are almost they those records definitely mark the beginning of like what most people commonly think of rock music nowadays. And
Yeah.
but it was this record that in which Clapton was like, okay, I'm gonna play at the level that I usually play live, and I want the mic 10 feet away from my amp in order to do so.
Mm.
And I want there to be jams. I want there to be even messy jams on this. I want there to be instrumentals. I want there to be a shit ton um of covers, even from artists that like are long gone, like not covers of another popular song on the radio. Like he has a
Yeah.
Robert Johnson cover on this. Um, for those who don't know, Robert Johnson is one of the best blues artists ever. He's the reason why we have the legend of the blues man that sells his soul to become really good at
Yeah.
guitar. That later got passed
In the
on to.
27 Club too.
Oh, true. He did
Yeah,
start the
yeah. He
27
was he
Club.
was the first 27 member of the 27 Club.
Yeah, and so, but those two records, like, they would not happen if it wasn't for Clapton. And even I would go so far as to say, if it wasn't for this record, Hendrix wouldn't have shown up to London. That was
That's
it.
yeah,
Was it
that's big.
when Jimi Hendrix got picked up by he actually got picked up by I think um hold up, I might actually search this up. I don't want to get this wrong. Um, Chaz um Chaz Chandler,
Yep.
uh, who was the basis of the Animals, which is another British blues band. But
Another British blues band.
yeah, and he wanted to be he became a talent scout. He found Jimi Hendrix, and telling him was like, hey man, we need. And he was he told Jimmy, he's like, we need bluesmen out there. We need guys who can really
Yeah.
play guitar. And it was a hard sell to be like, leave behind your band, your friends, the career you built up to now, and just
Your
come to
country.
London.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Until Chaz told her, he was like, I can get you to meet Eric Clapton, who Jimi Hendrix at the
Yeah.
time was like, that is the best guitar player living today. And
Yeah.
oh, when I talk to a lot of people about like British blues, especially people who are don't really like listen to a whole lot of rock music, they think of it as like cultural appropriation, like as like, oh, the blues got big, so a bunch of white kids started doing it because they wanted to sell records, and or they thought it was cool, but they don't really understand the blues. And
Yeah.
what I gotta say is like, bro, like not only did Jimmy come out and to see Clapton, who he thought was an incredible blues musician, but even like guys like BB King, Albert King, these are like undisputed guitar heroes of the blues genre that would say Eric Clapton is with us. He's one of us, even at that age, which I think
Yeah.
is nuts. It's really the fact that they like hanged out with him and went, wow, this guy actually like studies and appreciates our culture. Um,
Yeah, I feel like from all the people who got like in touch with the blues and musicians in Britain, like you have the McCartneys and you have the Led Zeppelins, but I feel like Clapton was the one who really like took it to heart and became a blues musician, not a rock musician that is influenced by the blues, but he became a blues musician.
yeah,
Yeah.
and actually, in true blues fashion, he did not want to make this record. He thought that he was not good enough to make this record. That he had to be like 40 something before he made his first record. And
Yeah. He had
it's pretty
imposter
much just
syndrome.
yeah. It was like a combination of John Mayall going please 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 and Rent that made him go okay, I'm gonna have to get in the studio and play this. And
Yeah.
and also the fact that it was John Mayall said he's like this is a pure blues record, no pop songs, I promise you. And because that's the reason why he left the Yardbirds. He left the Yardbirds at their height. Actually, they released their
Yeah.
number one hit, "For Your Love," and according to some sources, Clapton quit the minute they finished recording it.
Damn.
Like he recorded
Damn.
his solo and stepped out of the studio. He's like, I'm done with this shit.
Damn. It just wasn't. He had a blues soul, man. It just wasn't for him.
It wasn't for it. He didn't want to be a Beatle. You know.
Yeah. Although the
Uh,
Yardbirds are good for anyone who likes that. If you like that, go listen to the Yardbirds. They are good.
They are good. Although I do kind of see where he's coming from, where the Yardbirds started off like sounding like the Animals, and
Yeah.
then over time became more and more Beatles, more and more psychedelic. Like they got to the point where like the lead singer had the Beatles cut,
Come on,
and it's
man.
like yeah. At that point, like come on.
I mean, there was like at least five bands that were all Beatles clones.
At
There's the
least five. There's at
Zombies,
least 50, dude.
the
Like,
Monkeys, the
um,
Animals, kind of, but they went off a little differently.
uh, the Zombies.
Yeah, the Zombies, just
Ho-
a bunch of them.
yeah, the Hollies. Like like all of these bands.
The Blanks.
The E's.
Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, no, but so had it not been for this record, I really think that like we would think of rock music as pop fad, pop fad that led to more interesting pop music,
yeah.
and yeah, and so I highly encourage if you like blues, you should listen to this record. Do you have um do you have more questions?
Well, you told me I didn't know this. They were all the songs on this album are covers.
Most of the songs on the album are covers.
Are these like classic blues songs they're covering, or who are these songs of?
No, these are lesser known blues songs.
Oh,
These are actually pretty rare blues songs, except "What I Say," which is a Ray Charles song.
okay.
John Mayall's number one influence and his sort of like gateway drug into blues was Ray Charles.
Yeah,
Um, and you could hear it in the keyboards. John Mayall is the one playing the keys, and you can definitely hear that like that gospel influence in there.
yeah,
But no, Hideaway is a song by Freddie King that he on an instrumental like dance record that he made. And if you go and listen to it, uh, hold up, Hideaway. What album is this on? Ah, it's on like it's once again, the problem with a bunch of these blues artists is that they have like a shit ton of records, and a lot of them have the same songs. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of like best of that aren't really like they're a studio album that they made, and they're like best of.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of the challenging thing of us reviewing anything that's really old. It wasn't really until the 60s where people made albums that were like you were meant to be listened to from point A to point B, and they were structured. You know, back in the old days, people made albums where like the A side was the new songs and the singles, and then the B side was covers, and then
Mhm.
maybe some instrumentals. There are a few musicians we would want to do on this podcast. We just don't know how because they don't really have like an album to the point where we might make like our own best ofs for them.
Yeah, it would be like a playlist of is like these songs are the reasons why we like these guys.
Like yeah, we to have something to show you guys, to have a thing we can talk around. But old blues definitely goes on that list of it's hard to find a concrete album of what they've done.
Yeah, and they got a bajillion versions. There is a really interesting phase in blues that happens right after this album, while the second wave of British blues is happening. A lot of these blues artists coming to the UK, getting British bands together, getting in the British studio, and recording electric albums inspired by psychedelic rock. That I think is an
Mm,
incredibly interesting and overlooked phase of blues music. That's where you get albums like Electric Mud or the Howlin' Wolf album or the Super Sessions. All of those are 8 out of 10 top tier blues records that did not really talked about because they're post Hendrix. It's like, oh, after Hendrix, like rock music kind of took guitar playing. Like, no, these guys are still around. They're still recording, writing, putting stuff together. I think Albert King's like best record is from '74. You know, um,
yeah.
Freddie King's record. Also, I just found it. It's "Let's Hide Away and Dance Away." Um, it's a strictly instrumental. It says so on the cover. Strictly instrumental dance album. Like it's got some
Okay.
like it's like a collection of like jingles, and
Okay.
they're really good. The guitar playing is fantastic, but it's like
No, some of those are bangers. I've heard some
yeah,
of those like instrumental blues albums, and bro, the riffs are so good.
yeah, like something like the Ventures, like that's great. That's great guitar
Yeah,
work. But like what I mean is like he didn't pick these songs because like oh other blues fans will recognize them.
yeah.
He's like nope, I just want to jam on this. He even got something by Memphis Slim. Memphis Slim never even put out like a real record, dude. Um,
How did he know how to cover it?
oh, because he got singles. That's what I mean by
Oh,
he doesn't have like an LP out there, or at least they didn't have it at the time. Now there's
see, you can only
collections.
do this with the underground record club of back then.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So it's something that really impressed a lot of these blues artists is like the fact that like these kids would scour record stores trying to find this shit. It wasn't like, well, I heard it a few times, I thought it was cool, or like, well, they had it on sale. I was like, no, I went to all 20 antique shops in London looking
it,
for a single Freddie King record, anything, a crumb of blues.
it's a smidge.
Please. Um and yeah, and these guys, and thank God these guys like were open about it. Were like, uh well, not open about it at first. At first they were I think the general consensus amongst blues artists was like they're really glad that British artists are digging them, but British artists are in black. They can't sing, they can't play like they do.
Yeah,
They're like they can try all they want. It's not gonna happen. There's actually a Muddy Waters interview where he's like, well, they can learn the guitar parts, but they can never write like I do. They can't solo like I do. They definitely can't sing like I do. I got that deep baritone. They can't copy that.
that's true. It's not blues. It's not Southern blues. It's they made their own little thing with it,
Yeah, and I'm
and they
I'm
tried
I'm glad
to be
it's more
as
like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want them to try to do. I mean, they do some bluegrass on this album and stuff like that, but I wouldn't really want them to try to emulate it. I want them to make their own thing out of it because you're never gonna emulate it. You're never gonna perfectly do that. Just for
Yeah,
the same reasons Muddy Waters said.
yeah, exactly. And the you're never also like, oh, another challenge early on was when recording these records, and they're wanting to make it sound like real blues. This was more of a problem with the Rolling Stones. Um, they when they were first trying to do blues stuff right after Little Red Rooster, um, they would run into all types of problems with their with recording because these blues albums are like put together. They're like shoestring budgets. Whatever record engineer was there, whatever studio engineer was there, and it's like if it sounds a little muddy, if it sounds a little messy, if it sounds a little distorted, what the hell? Print
Yeah,
it, you know.
ship
Uh,
it.
but the in London, I swear to you, at this time, studio engineers would wear white coats. They would show up in a suit and a white coat, like they're a doctor.
Like
And they would have
cassette.
all types of dials and ways of measuring distortion besides just the ear, where it's like, oh, we have red right here on channel whatever, like, you
Yeah,
know. And and the Stones went through so many studios because of that. At the end, uh, and then once they had the money for it, they're like, let's just record it in the U.S. Like, fuck all this bullshit. Let's just record it at in, I think, Memphis.
yeah.
And that's when all the good records started coming out, like all the like really banger Stones records.
Oh, I guess the
And
British were too clean. They're
the
too
British
clean.
were the two queen. The first Disraeli Gears is recorded in New York, actually.
Mm.
Um, and and something I really like is that when they were recording that, all types of blues musicians showed up to the recording sessions, and a lot of them were just so confused.
Well, why?
They're like, why do you want to sound like me? That's like Keith Richards keeps on saying in all of these interviews, all of the documentaries I've seen is just like blues musicians that were so confused that like white kids would dig this for any reason other than pretentious reasons. Like they're like blown away that like the Stones would just sit there and be like, "You guys got the best stuff. This is the best music
Damn.
I've ever heard."
Damn. That's so funny how humble the origins are.
Yeah, it's so yeah, I really like this record, but even more so, I like what it represents, which is the universality of good music, the camaraderie you can get through music. Like if it wasn't for blues, like someone like Eric Clapton and BB King would never hang out.
Hmm.
And Eric Clapton, to this day, he's like, BB King was my best friend of all time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Jimi Hendrix wouldn't have come to the UK.
Yeah. Um, and the the John Lennon wouldn't be friends with Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I and also the fact that like it doesn't matter where you're from. If you study the masters, you can get good enough to play the music. You can get
Yeah.
good enough to earn the respect. Yeah, there's this like thing of like, oh, you're outside of the culture. You can't make this type of music. Is to some extent valid, but to say you're out of the culture permanently, like there's no way for you to integrate yourself or to learn or to grow true appreciation, I think is bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, I think that's really what it's this sort of history we've talked about represents. It's not just about, oh man, he could riff the guitar like a blues player. It's also like
Yeah.
getting it to the best of your ability, respecting it.
Mm.
Understanding where it comes from, and walking gracefully with what you're getting influenced by specifically, and hear the blues.
Hmm. So yeah, no, that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
So if the listener listens to the album and likes it, what should you think they should listen to, Lewis?
Oh man, okay. If you like this, definitely listen to Everything Cream. Everything Cream is fantastic. Um,
Absolutely.
there's gonna be other records by Clapton that I don't want to spoil, but listen to other John Mayall albums. So this is the only one with Clapton, unfortunately. But the other two guitarists that John Mayall had in the Blues Breakers, Peter Green, who went on to do start Fleetwood Mac. Yes, that Fleetwood Mac, which was originally a blues band.
Yeah.
Um, and Mick Taylor, who ended up being the lead guitarist for the Rolling Stones after Brian Jones died. Um, check out those two respective guitars in the Blues Breakers, and depending on which one you like, go and check out their other bands, the Fleetwood Mac, the first three records, and Rolling Stones. What was it? Uh, Hold up, searching it up. The early '70s Rolling Stones.
Sticky
Um,
Fingers?
yeah, Sticky Fingers for sure. Check
Yeah.
out. Yeah, I would recommend Sticky Fingers to anyone who
Sticky
enjoyed this
Fingers
record.
is a banger.
Banger, banger,
Banger.
banger, and
What
oh my god,
what
their Wikipedia page is huge.
yeah, I mean, they have like a million records at this point. What you got any deep cuts in the blues
Deep cuts in the blues. Oh,
that would
listen.
stem from this album?
Oh, Albert King's "Under a Bad Sign." Uh, BB King's "Live at the Regal." Live at the Regal for sure. That's not even deep cut. That's like if you like blues guitar playing, you have to listen to that record.
Yeah.
You have to listen to that record. Um, uh, f- Listen to Freddie King's Getting Ready. Listen to what? Man, there's a lot. Oh, what? And if you're very really intrigued by one of the biggest influences in Eric Clapton's life, please check out Robert Johnson. There's a collection of everything he put together. Before that sounds way too big, it's 29 minute and a half long songs that are but they feature some fantastic guitar playing. Um I'm trying to think. Oh, the how Moaning at Midnight by Howlin' Wolf for sure. Especially if you like Zeppelin. I highly recommend that to people who like Zeppelin. Um
Yeah.
it's got the 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 aggression, the messiness, and that voice, bro. Um, and what else? Um, I could go all day with other blues
Yeah,
records,
yeah.
but
Yeah,
do
Lewis
yourself
over
a
here
favor.
is a blues connoisseur. I mean, for as long as I've known Lewis, you fucked with it heavy.
I fucked with it because of Hendrix. Um,
Yeah.
and and just like and through Hendrix, I guess that's why I relate a lot to these guys because just like these guys, no, why I relate not so much to Hendrix, but like I relate more to Clapton because I come from a you know middle class white family,
Yeah.
and I've and no one presented me to blues. Like I listened to like classic rock on the record on the radio. Um, and
Yeah.
then like it wasn't until I started playing guitar, started digging what do my favorite guitar players dig. That I'm like, damn, this is so fucking good.
Yeah, I feel like the journey Clapton did of finding blues is the similar journey many young guitarists do to just music in general, and they end up finding whatever they like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially if it's like a lot of guitarists, they're really playing outside of their culture. I think that's a great thing about guitar playing. Is that you're supposed to find your own
Yeah.
path, you're supposed to find your own sound, which leads you down these like musical rabbit holes of that. So like in your area, you are the guy that knows about this subject, like shoegaze. like the shoegaze guy in your area,
Yeah.
you're the punk guy in your area,
Yeah.
you're the death metal guy in your area. Not to say like there isn't like a couple of you, but like but in the sense like the instrument itself doesn't dictate what you play.
Yeah.
It opens up to a bunch of different possibilities.
Yeah.
And
And that's why
yeah,
rock has 4 million subgenres. I feel like it's the most uniquely built, like, umbrella genre out of any form of music, essentially.
yeah,
Because I wouldn't say the same about like hip hop. Like hip hop does have just subgenres, but nowhere near as much as rock. Like you go and rate your music, and you look at a genre, then it breaks down into five other genres, and those five genres break down into three more. And
yeah,
there's so many different ways. Like rock artists, it's like they're allergic to making the same music. They have to do their own thing.
yeah. And I also noticed that like all the subgenres, like when you go and rate your music for hip hop, they're all regional. They're still holding
Yeah,
on to this like idea of like if you're not from the culture, you can't be making music like this. If you're not from
yeah,
this, like if you're not from Atlanta, you can't be making Atlanta hip hop for the
yeah,
most part.
yeah. It's very community driven hip
It is
hop.
very
Or
community driven. It's and it's very cultural. It's very also self referential.
yeah, it's very different. We talked about this. Where like rock is like I like to imagine it being like a poet in his attic under candle lights, trying to make the most unique and crazy thing that he thinks no one has ever heard of it before.
Yeah,
And in hip hop is more of a community coming together, and all of their voices stack upon each other, and they build upon each other.
yeah, and you can now have hip hop artists that where like half of their song is references to other hip hop songs.
Yeah, yeah. But you get it.
No,
It makes
and it
sense.
becomes
Yeah,
a
yeah.
conversation. But this one, this rock one, is every single rock record assumes that this is the first rock record you ever heard.
Yes.
um. So yeah. If you like blues, you like rock, you like guitar playing, you like keyboard playing, you like drum playing, right? There's some great fucking playing on
Yeah.
here. Please check out this record. Um. Please check out Cream and
And stay
and
tuned if you like Clapton,
yeah,
because
stop
next
the Clapton
episode,
hate.
yeah. Well, why do people hate on Clapton so much? Because it was it because of the cocaine era.
No, it's because he's this suburban middle class white boy that got rich and famous from playing the blues, and that rubs people off the wrong way when they don't know when they don't understand the context and the history. You know, they're like, "What the fuck? What is this guy doing? Why the fuck is he singing about the blues? What the
Yeah,
fuck does he know about the blues, bro?" And that and it's either that or from the outsider's perspective, and in the rock perspective, it's just like is like, why would you listen to like you got Hendrix, bro? Why would you listen to Clapton? Like you got
yeah.
Page, like you got all of the other guitarists that came after the '70s. Like Clapton is
You
kind of
can't
like
look
ain't
at it like that.
it's
I
kind of
feel
like
like
old news, you know? Like
I mean, I feel like you can't just be like, okay, yes, I would say Page and Hendrix are better, but that doesn't mean there isn't merit to the originals. You know
yeah,
what I
but
mean?
people just think that he's overrated because of that, and now that I've researched his record, I'm like, this guy literally made made rock music a genre, like its own legitimate thing, and
Hmm.
in a way that at least people in the UK weren't thinking of it before. Like
Yeah.
this he single handedly changed the game.
This was a divergent point of history if this album was made or not.
This the butterfly effects from this album is crazy.
Yes, yes. But yeah, anything else you want to say on the album?
Um, no, just listen to it.